This is the book of Rabbi Yosef Chaim Mimran. The Power of Intention. Kavanah. Now, for those of you who really can follow a little the deeper shiurim that we have here, Kavanahs are extremely, extremely important. And we see that in the Kavanah means intention. What is your will? What are you trying to reach? How can you reach it? By doing this mitzvah or doing that mitzvah. How do you do that? So what we're talking about is nothing other than Jewish meditation. Jewish meditation, I don't like the word, I like the word Jewish, but I don't like the word meditation because it's been bandied about. It's used in a lot of different ways. I want to give you an example of something that I see over here. In the Hebrew, there is going to be an expression. It goes like this: in order to connect to his higher light, his, that is, of the Ein Sof Baruch Hu, one must understand that the nefesh is a simple spiritual entity which is drawn to what is similar to itself, and he says that this is translated as spiritual fires. Now, in the Hebrew, the words are, and I understand the word spirit really goes along with the word ruach in Hebrew. Me ha-ishim ha-ruchnim, these are fires that are in the spirit. It's a very difficult word to put together because it has so many meanings. Ruach means direction in Hebrew. Ruach also means like the word reach, which is an odor or a scent. Ruach is breath, ruach is wind. So there's many things in the dimension which is there but not really physical. I try to think to myself that when someone passes away, the Hebrew expression is they're excused from this world, a nifter. They become a ruach. So could we translate it as spirit? Well, it doesn't sound, it is, in a way, if you focus on it. But it's also wind. It's also a direction, etc. So this said, in order to connect to his higher light, one must understand that the nefesh is a simple spiritual entity, which is drawn to what is similar to itself. And we call this, I would call it fires of the spirit. So this is a principle that Rabbi Mimran has said before, is that there is connection, since there are many parts of every sphere. There are 10 parts to every sphere. You could go on with this, but there are similarities and matches. So what matches between one sphere and the next, between one component and the next, that's what goes together. And it naturally distances itself from what is opposite to it. So it wants to reach the fire of spirit. That spirit, which I said is in the wind, is in the air, is in the breath. But wants to stay away from material bodies, materialism. Unfortunately, we're in a world of tremendous materialism, so we'll see what's going to happen. Adam's original body is said to have been similar in appearance to the angels. Angels are pure thought forms. Listen to that. He didn't say light forms. He said thought forms composed of hyper-light particles existing in a fifth dimension. Want to read it again? Angels are pure thought forms. And he said previously that thought is faster than the speed of light. How they measure this, I have no idea, but he says that. Thought forms are composed of hyper-light qualities. I'm not sure what the hyper means. I think it means like super extra light particles existing in a fifth dimension. Now, what is that? The value of thought here gives us insight as to why the Torah places such strong emphasis on thought and intent. That's called Kavanah, in Hebrew, or Kavanah. And prayer, in performing the ritual commandments, our thoughts create things. Now, again, and when you thought and intent and prayer In performing the ritual commandments, our thoughts create things. A shift of essence from hyperlight to sublight speed should not be a foreign concept to us. Oh, wow. Heat equals speed of movement. In other words, the more a molecular structure of a thing vibrates, the hotter that mass becomes. The opposite is also true. The slower something goes, the colder it becomes. The known example of this is H2O, which is 2 atoms of hydrogen and 1 atom of oxygen, which we know as water. When water is between the temperatures 0 and 100 degrees Celsius, it exists as a liquid state. Below 0 degrees Celsius, the molecular structure of water slows down to become solid ice. At the temperature above 100 degrees Celsius, liquid water turns into a gas form, steam. Eventually, steam can be heated until it further becomes plasma, a type of matter that isn't simply gas, yet is not pure energy. Now, these are all physical ideas in physics. I'm not a physicist. I'm reading along. And as is with water, so it is with the body of man, and thus all mankind, whose bodies are made up of about 60% water. The result of incongruent movement in the dimension of thought led Adam's essence to slow to such an extent that it changed essence from light to mass. Now, this sentence I would like to analyze a little bit more. He says the result of incongruent movement in the dimension of thought. What is incongruent movement? He began to think the thoughts, so to speak, of the snake. Led Adam's essence, as he did this, he became more involved in the physicality which was being taught to him by the snake, so to speak, to show slow to such an extent that it changed essence from light to mass, the same way we have this concept with water, steam, and ice. Instead, in other words, I have it that Adam Rishon was created in Olam Yetzirah. Yetzirah is, again, part of the concept of Ruach, or wind, or breath, or many other things. Instead of being like an angel, Adam became like a monkey, comparatively speaking. He made himself into superphysical. Yet it appears that our energy side only became encased in an outer shell of matter. This is the relationship of body and soul. Matter is ever-changing. Atoms are continually forming new molecule structures. So it seems that whatever energy field we call a soul, it only has a temporary ability to project a cohesive element to the molecules that form our physical bodies. Now, seems to me this a deep, deep thought. And in the time that we have, I want to develop it, but I'm not sure I have the time. So let's see. So it seems that whatever energy field we call the soul. Now, he's saying what? The statement that our soul, we use the word soul, which is just a word. In English, it's a 4-letter word. In Hebrew, actually there are 5 levels to a soul. So you get to a lot of different kinds of understandings. But here, he says that it's an energy field. It only has a temporary ability to project a cohesive element to the molecules. In other words, it has a temporary ability to get a hold of the physicality that surrounds it, that form our physical bodies. Yet at some point, this cohesive ability either breaks down or intentionally has within it a type of self-destruct mechanism. So in other words, what he means to say, let's take it again. Yet at some point, this cohesive ability, in other words, he's able to hold himself together and be an entity that is the human being, that is the original man. Adam, what we call the original man, which is male and female, incidentally, either breaks down or intentionally has within it a type of self-destruct mechanism. So what is it? Is that the mass cannot stay as a cohesive element, is what he's saying, forever. This is the aging process, which results in the inevitable death of the physical body. Now, he said from a Kabbalistic tradition, though, it does not seem that this process is absolute. We have two examples of humans who have descended the physical plane by transforming, let me get that right, into light bodies. These two are Enoch, in the beginning of the 5 books of Moses, and Eliyahu Navi, Eliyahu the prophet, both spoken about in the Torah. The change itself is a rather interesting one, or according to Kabbalistic legend, their bodies were turned into fire. Now here is that fire of the spirit, perhaps he's talking about. Now everyone knows that if one's flesh were to combust, one would burn to death. Therefore this is some other type of fire. Yet if the transference of matter and into energy is performed by the speeding up of a molecular structure, we can speed it up to the speed of light and beyond. This generates a large amount of heat. Well, that is, in our dimension, it does that. That's my thinking about it. Let's see what he says. This is most likely the reason why angels and other entities of that nature are said to possess bodies that glow like brass or gold. Their forms are not made of matter as we know it. So it's not subject, this is my thinking, that it's not subject to the rules of matter, but rather a pure energy, congealing in an appropriate form for the sake of their individual earthly mission. As I have said before, in my opinion, or the way to describe an angel is as a vessel, a channel that allows for the abundance of God to come down to us and for us to pray for it. Should be the other way around. Us pray for it to come down. Such form is discarded once the entity returns to its own dimensional plane of existence. Now, exactly what that means, I'm not sure. So he says, such a case is mentioned in Tanakh, the scriptures, referring to an angel that visited the parents of Samson, a Jewish judge who would possess tremendous strength. Once the angel finished his message, scripture mentions how the angel disappeared in a puff of smoke. Standard human intelligence does not conceive of matterless forms of pure energy. It's not possible for us to be able to picture this, which are constructs of thought existing in the fifth dimensional plane. I think that what he means by, I was wondering what he meant by the fifth dimension. I think he means the fifth dimension is thought. Yet these entities exist up and above our awareness. They're that of it. Just like we had radio waves. Who knew, 250 years ago, or 200 years ago, what a radio wave was? So yet these entities exist up and above our awareness or lack of. We have our lack of awareness. When interacting with these entities, of these entities, they must project the type of visage through their natural medium of the mental plane. So this is a type of Kabbalah where he's telling us that our mental plane is a dimension which is above earth, fire, air, and water. It is only in this way that average humans are able to recognize, to understand non-matter forms of life. Now, I'd like to read it again. And I'm gonna. Standard human intelligence does not conceive of matterless forms of pure energy. In other words, we have to conceive of things as some kind of physicality that maybe holds energy, like a wire, something like that, which are constructions of thought existing in the fifth dimensional plane. He said pure energy, that's in thought is where you find it. Yet these entities exist above our awareness. We have no awareness, we have our lack of awareness. When interacting with us, now these are energies he's talking about, this pure energy. These energies must project a type of visage through their natural medium, which is where the vision begin in the mental plane, in your mind, in your thinking. It is only in this way that average humans are able to cognize non-matter forms of life. Thus, when one of these entities appears, It actually is harmonizing, slowing its vibrational frequency of whatever form of particles or strings or how we understand it forms its existence. It has to slow down the wings, so to speak, that cause it to fly. They have to stop fluttering so fast so that it can appear. So let me see if I'm listening. Yeah, so he says, with an appropriate match within the individual's subjective mind. So again, this is a deeper thought. Again, that the projection of something much higher has to go into a like-minded place in the individual's mind. He's really describing some aspects of prophecy of what it's like. Such an entity does not need to take on mass, and thus slow down its personal modulation to that point. It simply communicates with the human in that one dimension, that one that we share, the realm of thought. Now, this chapter, and as I've said before, I've read this book more than once. At least part of it. Some of it I haven't read at all. It's because the first part of it, I think, is very, very difficult for me to digest it and practice it. So these are things that we have to think about. He's going deeper beyond physical reality, which is earth, air, fire, and water, that kind of what we can make out of that, how they function. It's saying that thought is a different dimension. So he says, as mentioned earlier, the proof that radio waves and other such frequencies exist is because we have the necessary instruments, the instruments such as radios and mobile phones, etc., that can detect them. So it can also be considered as the devices by which communication with angels, souls, and the like is possible, but it has to be a match. So he has this little blurb. Let me bring it down a little bit closer and see what it says so we can get it focused. Angels simply communicate with the human in that one dimension which we share. And he says that the angels, or I think I would put the word a thought energy. The realm of thought is the area in which we come together. This is Baruch Flashman. You're listening to the Tikkun Elevator Kol. Thank you very much for being here.